What's the worst sex you've ever had? My first and only hookup. He got half the tip in, finished, and cried in the bathroom. I tried telling him it was kind of a compliment, but he didn't want to hear it. He wouldn't come out till I left, and once I did, he blocked me on everything, so it is what it is, I guess. Nothing too crazy, but one time I hooked up with a Tinder match. Her dog was laying on the bed next to us while we were in missionary. Dog was above her head from my POV. Little dude kept staring at me with a look like, "Can you please stop?" Sad face. So I got turned off. Thanks a lot, dog. Got puked on while she was on top, straight up exorcist shit. Then I threw up. Turns out we got bad sushi. My friend told me they were in the backseat of a car when the guy fucking her got a text that his mom died. First time ever, and the guy refused foreplay and just tried to shove it in. When it wouldn't work, he suggested I have a shower to assist in getting me wet. I explained that I just needed a bit of foreplay, and he shoved his fingers into me for about 10 seconds and then tried ramming his dick into me again. Probably went in about 2 centimeters before he just gave up. It was like he was trying to go down a dry slip and slide. 1/10 would not recommend. One of my exes was really into bondage. I mostly embraced the experience with him and actually found myself enjoying the dom part of it. We started with shackles, eventually got to the rope until he had the bright idea to try these plastic zipper cable binders. I even told him that I don't think that's a good idea, considering how sharp they can be on the edges. Anyways, I tied him to the bed frame and we really got into it until I noticed that parts of the bed sheet turned red. I looked up and realized that he was basically cutting himself with the zip ties and started to bleed from ankles and wrists. I stopped and wanted to cut him loose, but he didn't want to. In fact, he seemed to enjoy it and begged for me to go on. I did not. I cut him loose, got dressed, and left. I like my sex without someone bleeding all over the place, thank you very much. Edit, I feel like clarifying that I'm a gay man, and no, I never experienced period sex, and I'm quite happy about that fact. One time she was dirty talking to me and said, "You're going to end up in a hospice and die alone." The mood was absolutely ruined and I left, never spoke to her again. My first time hooking up or doing anything, he went down on me. He decided it would be hot to blow a raspberry on me down there like you would blow on a baby's tummy. Then asked, "Was that good for you?" "No, Jay, it was not." She shit all over my balls and thighs. This was with a regular hookup. The sex was going great, until one vigorous thrust tore my frenulum. Stinging pain, lots of blood. I wince and tell the girl something's up, and we stop and look. Girl freaks out thinking the blood is coming from her and runs to the bathroom. I go to the other bathroom and shower, attempting to see where the pain was coming from. I tell her what I find. We research and discover what a frenulum, aka banjo string, is. We end up laughing about it. I apologize for freaking her out and making her think it was her. She stays the night anyway, end up dating, I heal up, pick up where left off, and get married 5 years later. Edit, wow, what a response. I didn't expect my first awards to come on the back of the pain of so many of my fallen comrades. I thank you all and feel your pain. To answer a few questions. It took about a month until I was comfortable to have sex again, plenty of foreplay and lube in the lead up. Hasn't happened again, thankfully. In terms of how it looks, everything is the same, but there's a bit of scar tissue where it tore. Around 18, I was a virgin. My girlfriend was more experienced than I. I was the most nervous I'd ever been, and because my girlfriend quite liked me, she was also quite nervous, me losing virginity, or something like that. We'd been together for around 4 or 5 months before we took things to the next level. We had sex and it was incredible, but I lasted around 45 minutes and didn't jazz, had to stop due to sheer exhaustion. She ended up crying for the rest of the night, telling me how bad she was and how I didn't find her attractive, which somewhat ruined that first experience, and was also untrue, but there was nothing I could do or say to console her, other than tell her how much I wanted to keep going. She ended up breaking up with me the day after, and eventually moved away. Fucked me up for a while. Edit, 34 now. I can now only dream of the good old 45-minute glory days. But, life is wonderful, smile. Probably the time my partner tore a muscle during and we had to go to the ER. One time in college. There was no foreplay and he just stuck it in, so after a few pumps I said, "You can finish," to which he replied, "I can't," and I said, "What do you mean?" To which he replied, "I've never came before." Years later and he has a child, so I guess it all worked out for him, haha. My first ever time, and I was naive as all fuck out. Let him do everything to me, even anal, and I didn't enjoy a single thing. He kissed with his mouth wide open and our teeth touched. His idea of foreplay was rough and rushed. I got on top and that was horrid too. As he came, he also passed out unconscious, so I had to call an ambulance and the paramedic asked me where the blood on the bed came from, and I wanted to die having to explain that was my virgin blood. We kissed for maybe 15 seconds, then he tried to put it in. Told me I was dry and should probably see a doctor about that. When I told him I needed more than a kiss to get it started, he was offended. I pulled out some lube instead. He was in there for 30 to 45 seconds. He came, got embarrassed, and walked out shortly after. Texted me 3 days later telling me I was mid. I blocked him after that. After we finished, she broke up with me and said, "You know what it's like to have sex with someone you don't love anymore?" It felt like someone had just kicked me in the stomach. Girl that initiated but was just completely rigid when we were having sex. Wouldn't really spread her legs, so it was like trying to fuck a pallet jack. When I was younger, I managed a bar in my local town. I pulled a very attractive girl and took her home. When we were having sex, she had a fit and looked like she had passed out or died. When she came around, she told me she had an epileptic fit. Weirdest feeling ever, being inside someone when you think they've just died. Was with a girl that I had already had sex with. The first time wasn't too bad, just way rougher than I could handle. Like I was thrusting so hard the blood left my dick into my legs for support, and the noises, oh god, the noises. I persevere and we both finish, calling it a night. Anyways, she was in town and asked if she could stay at my house for a night. I thought sure, why not? Being the horny 20-year-olds we are, we obviously have sex. It's like the last time but amped up to max. She wants it even rougher than last time. I try my best but then she tells me to punch her. I play dumb. I can't do it. I cannot donkey punch someone during sex. We keep going and the noises are even worse this time. It's a mixture of banshee wailing and guttural throat singing. I get her off but there's no way I could finish. Thought that was the end of it, but then I wake up at 6 a.m. to her blowing me. This is not the fantasy every man dreams of being woken up to. It sounds similar to the grapefruit technique but on max volume, but that's not the worst of it. The teeth. Oh my fucking god, the teeth. I've never had a blowjob hurt, but today was that day. As soon as I realized what was happening, I offered to eat her out instead. In the flurry of movement, I was able to text my friend, "Emergency, call me and tell me to come get you as soon as you wake up," and not even 10 seconds later my best friend saves my ass. Tell her I gotta go, it's an emergency, yada yada yada, end up take my boy out for 7 a.m. beers and breakfast. Tough call, 2 different events several months apart. Not that the sex was bad, but the overall sexual experience was less than stellar. The first was with my first serious GF. We were together a long time, we shared our virginities and then proceeded to have the dumbest, most frequent sex a couple of teenagers could have. One time I went to pick her up from her house. Her parents were leaving as I arrived, and her dad let me wait in the house while she finished getting ready. As soon as I saw them leave, I went to the bathroom, got in the shower with her, and we got busy. Shower sex is not great, so we got out, I sat on the toilet and she got on top of me. I heard a thump and asked her about it, but she assured me it was her dog. It was not. About 5 seconds later, her giant, Marine Corps drill instructor dad threw the door open. He was not happy. I was just happy I didn't die that day. Fast forward a few months, a longtime friend and I had a FWB arrangement. We would meet up every week, sometimes multiple times a week, and have sex in her car. One night we're going at it, I'm on top of her in the passenger seat. The seat is leaned back as far as it can go, but mid-stroke there's a loud snap, we fall further back on the seat and she turns into a banshee, screaming all of the pain she's ever felt directly into my ear hole. The seat frame/support had snapped, so suddenly and very unexpectedly, she was being double penetrated. The still attached piece of the support had stabbed her between the ribs. It was terrifying, there was blood everywhere, and when I took her to the hospital I had to explain to her parents what happened. For bad sex, it would actually be my first threesome. It was not planned, not thought out, and not good. It had started as my buddy and I hanging out with two friends/roommates we worked with. Things escalated, he got whiskey dick and bailed. I ended up in the bedroom with both girls. One of the girls was jealous and petty and literally counting how long I spent with each of them. It was a lot of back and forth and difficult to get into any enjoyable rhythm, as the jealous one kept making demands and smart-ass remarks. I definitely imagined threesomes being way cooler. I strongly recommend that if you're going to have one, ensure there's good communication and everyone knows what to expect. It was my first time, and the guy I was with just shoved his dick in my ass. No going slow, no lube. Just thrusting himself right up in there. Edit, I'm a guy. This was my first full-on gay sex. No rape happened. Kinda goes in hand with my second time. First time she was on her period, so I thought that's how sex was always supposed to go. Imagine my surprise the second time, and she wasn't on her period. They wanted to try it on a trampoline, to be more bouncy. I was hitting it doggy style and we were really into it, and just when we were about to finish, this sharp Charlie horse shot up the back of my leg, like a muscle spasm. That put the brakes on everything. I'm trying to stretch out and she's laughing. My ex, despite me expressing my concern that it would hurt and be too much, insisted that he put the lush toy we owned in me while fucking because the vibrations would feel nice on his dick. No surprise to me, it hurt a lot and I ended up in tears. I asked him to stop because it really hurt and didn't feel good and was just rubbing my G-spot raw to the point I was bleeding. He told me that it wasn't too much and couldn't I just try a little longer because he was close, plus he'd seen cam girls do it all the time so he knew it wasn't painful. I was sobbing by the end of it and ended up with a tear. He seemed annoyed I wasn't into it. He finished and left to go shower, leaving me by myself. That or the time he put honey on his dick and wanted me to suck it, threw a literal tantrum like a toddler when I said I was in pain and not in the mood. Stormed off to the bathroom and locked the door. We argued later and he tried to convince me he did it for me and that I was being ungrateful. Didn't even try to make me come, just fucked me, then pulled out, got condom off and came in my eye. Threw him out on the spot. It was 3 a.m. and he was complaining he was lost in the sticks and it'd be hard to get a taxi. Respect your date next time, cunt. When I first started having sex, it took me a long time to become comfortable with giving a blowjob. As a youngster, it somehow got wormed into my head that guys use sticking their dick down their partner's throat as a means of dominating or demeaning them. After about a year of doing other types of sex, I'd finally worked through that baggage enough to go for it. Once I started sucking, my at the time fiancé grabbed the back of my neck and held on tight. He wouldn't let me pull back, just kept thrusting even when he was hitting my gag reflex. When he came, I had to swallow just so I could breathe, really didn't want to. Second he let go, I ran to the bathroom and threw up. I just felt so terrible. My high school best friend's girlfriend and I had a lot of sexual tension. We got drunk and made out a couple times, but we kept it from going too far. After high school, my friend and her broke up, but by then I had a girlfriend. We went to colleges about 12 hours apart but kept in touch and saw each other in the summer. There was always sexual tension. It was so obvious. My girlfriend even teased me about it. My senior year of college, I broke up with my longtime girlfriend, and my friend was single then too. We ended up getting drunk one Saturday at our respective schools, and one or the other initiated a drunken late night phone call where we basically said, in very graphic terms, what we wanted to do to each other. Needless to say that next Friday she got in her car and drove the 12 hours to visit me at my school. After about a half hour of pretending to interact with my friends, we made some excuse and headed to my room. The door hadn't been closed for 10 seconds and we were under the sheets. The foreplay was great. 5 years of build-up will do that. I ended up on my back with her head between my legs. After a bit she slithered up and straddled me. She was gushing wet, and as she eased herself down onto me, she burst into tears. She then collapsed on my chest and started to sob convulsively. I was still inside her, so this was super awkward to say the least. After a few minutes she rolled off and basically balled up in the fetal position and cried for what seemed like hours until she fell asleep, still naked in my bed. I slept on the floor, very confused. In the morning we talked. It turns out she had a history of sexual abuse as a child. She has had sex as an adult many times before, but something about having sex with me triggered a flood of trauma, and she said she didn't think she could get past that. We had a nice visit the rest of the weekend. But there was no more sexual tension. We both are long married to people we met after college and still keep in touch. I'm so dumb. I always click on these threads thinking it would be humorous, and I always end up reading about rape. Especially anal rape. Hi, am I doing this to myself?